Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Kids Yoga Podcast. I'm Jessica, and for this week's re-release episode, I am releasing my interview with Jodi Golda Komitor. She was a dream guest. I couldn't believe at the time that she agreed to be on. She really is one of the originals in the kids yoga scene that paved the way for all of us and really got kids yoga popularized, and she was a big presence in New York City, which is where I started my kids yoga career for about a decade. So when I was able to speak to her and she agreed to be on, it was really a dream come true. So I just loved talking to Jodi. She shared a lot about how she first started her kids yoga studio in New York City and really got insightful about her perspective of the business of kids yoga and how she took the steps towards really honing in on the business expertise. And now she serves as a mentor to other kids yoga professionals and is just truly an inspiration. So excited to re-release this episode for all of you. Jodi Golda Komitor. Welcome to the Kids Yoga Podcast, the place for all things kids yoga. My name is Jessica Mugis, and welcome to the show. This week, I'm going to be continuing my Kids Yoga Perspective series with Jodi Golda Komitor. And Jodi is someone who is a kids yoga pioneer and someone that I dreamed of having on this podcast when I started it. So I'm super thrilled to talk to her today. But first, I just wanted to give you guys a little background. Jodi Golda Komitor is the founder of Next Generation Yoga, the first kids yoga studio in the world. Inspired by her background in education, Jodi Golda started Next Generation Yoga in 1998 in New York City, a company she operated for 21 years. While in leadership at NGY, Jodi Golda developed and implemented school and community-based programs, U.S. and international teacher trainings, and multi-dimensional online offerings. Of course, she didn't do any of this alone and is proud of the badass teachers, trainers, and team with whom she hired, collaborated, and grew NGY. During her season as CEO of NGY, Jodi Golda celebrated many successes, including authoring The Complete Idiot's Guide to Yoga with Kids, receiving multiple features in renowned media sources, starring in yoga videos with Gaiam and Comcast On Demand, winning the Kids Yoga Service Award from the National Kids Yoga Conference, and dearest to her heart, leading a volunteer service project in Kenya and certifying 100+ Africa Yoga Project teachers in Next Generation Yoga methodology. And yet, Jodi Golda recognizes and values the law of change. In May of 2019, she passed the baton and sold Next Generation Yoga. Her passion for mentoring kids yoga entrepreneurs remains strong. She is the organizer of a non-competitive, like-minded international business group called the Biz of Kids Yoga. Through the Biz of Kids Yoga, Jodi Golda provides private and group coaching to kids yoga and mindfulness professionals. Jodi Golda is currently taking a sabbatical and on a world wander overseas. When she's not business coaching, she can be found practicing the art of unwinding, being with nature, learning to juggle, spending quality time with loved ones, and performing random acts of kindness. Her main focus now? Listening to her soul for her next passion project. Jodi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jessica. So appreciate and happy to be here.
Now, I wanted to kind of start at the beginning, and back in 1998. So when you started Next Generation Yoga, kids yoga was not a thing. It wasn't a trend. So what brought you to kids yoga? How did you find it?
So thankfully, my parents showed me to the path. When I was a teenager, my parents were practicing yoga on Fire Island, which you may be familiar with, being a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
And they were practicing yoga, and I was 15 years old, summering out on Fire Island, and was watching them putting their bodies in these weird positions. And as a teenager, I was like, what are you doing? And I want to try that. And so, like most people who try yoga for the first time, I fell in love with it. And that was kind of my initiation to the yoga path. And I was so passionate about it. It stuck with me, like literally from my teenage years up until today. And of course, it's transformed many, many, many times. But so that was my introduction to yoga. And then simultaneously, as I was preparing to go off to college and choosing a major, I was thinking at first I was going to be studying nutrition. And then I did a senior year project, and I started working with kids with Down syndrome. And I got really passionate about this population and children in general. And so I studied education and became a teacher right out of college. So here I am continuing to practice yoga. I'm out of college, and I'm a school educator in New York City, working with kids with special needs. And again, my mother pops into the story. And in my third year of teaching in the classroom, she points out this article that was in Yoga Journal magazine. It was an article as well as an advertisement for yoga for the special child with Sonia Sumar. And she was like, Jodi, you got to do this. Like, these are your two passions, like kids with special needs and yoga. And so after my third year, right around in 1998, when I was on the summer break from teaching, I took this 10-day certification program. And literally it was like in day one where I was watching Sonia Sumar, who goes by Shiva Kami. I was like, oh my goodness, I want to do this. Like, I want to be her. So yeah, that was kind of like the stepping stones that got me to the gateway of falling in love with yoga for kids. It was particularly and specifically with kids with special needs. And so I realized at the end of those 10 days that I was not wanting to go back into the classroom, and that I really wanted to focus my time and my energy on teaching yoga to kids with special needs. And so I had called my parents, and I called the director of the school, and I said, listen, I'm not going back in the classroom, and I want to teach yoga to kids. And so I had an apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and it was big enough, it was spacious enough for me to have private lessons. And I had no business or marketing skills in my toolbox, but I networked with the kids and the families with whom I was teaching for the last 3 years. And so those are the ones who I started out with. Those are the ones who came to my apartment. And so, yeah, that was kind of the launching pad. I had no idea it was going to become a business. I probably didn't even realize I had a business until, I had a conversation with an accountant. He was like, you probably need to file as an LLC. Yeah, that's the short version.
Right. Yeah, I know that so much goes into that. So to go from that leap from a classroom teacher and then starting to teach privately, was it kind of a slow build to the point where you realized like, oh, I could grow this?
Yeah.
Did it take a lot of time?
Yeah, I'd like to see it, my career in different sort of parts. And the first part was 2 years in my apartment, and on 73rd and Columbus Avenue, in a little brownstone apartment. And I remember I had these private classes, and that was I knew kids were coming for that. But I also got to a place where I'm like, I feel like we all have special needs, and maybe I could offer group classes at this point. And so again, with zero skills in business or marketing, I was like, I think I'll put up a flyer. Like, I think I've seen people do those flyer things. And so I made those little tearaway flyers on like my vintage computer, some clip art
yes,
programs,
clip art.
Yeah, totally. In fact, the first Next Generation Yoga logo was total clip art. It's funny, but, and so, yeah, I put up flyers, and like, I was offering, couple of classes a week, and like literally just like nobody would come. I would be like the only one. And it was really, really daunting, and it was really scary. And I was like, man, I think I'm going to need to go back in the classroom. Like, I had given up, job security, health insurance, a steady paycheck. And here I am, I've got rent an apartment. I was also, in school simultaneously getting my master's, degree. And I had some part-time work, as well, but I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But I knew what I was wanting to create. Like, I knew what I had to offer, even though no one else that I knew was doing it, except for Sonia Sumar and her community. Like, I knew that this was important and needed. And so probably about my 10th month in, I went to Equinox Fitness on the Upper West Side and took a yoga class, and the teacher, starts the class and he's like, hello, my name is Michael Port. I'm the yoga teacher today, and I just want to introduce myself. I'm also starting my career as a business coach for yoga teachers. And I was like, I have no idea what a business coach is, but that sounds like something that I need, And so I remember I'd gone home and I had like looked him up on the internet, and so I scrambled through my savings and I found money and I hired Michael, and Michael actually helped me. I worked with him for about a year. And he helped me to get a website. He helped me to grow my classes. He helped me to organize marketing materials. He helped me, through getting a website. I was founded by Macmillan to co-author the Complete Guide to Yoga for Kids. So this was all like in the first pretty much 2 years. And from what I learned and the work I was doing with Michael, like I built classes, and they, anywhere between 4 and 6 kids in the class, and I would do a family private, and to the point where actually I couldn't grow what was my business, even though I was like, this is not a business, right? But I had grown the business so much at that time, my point, that I couldn't grow anymore. I couldn't offer like, group family classes. I was like interested in birthday parties. I couldn't offer that. Like, so we couldn't grow anymore. And so at that point in the year 2000, that's when I started to look for an actual brick and mortar official yoga studio. And that was when I opened the first official kids yoga studio in the world.
Isn't that amazing? You opened the first kids yoga studio in the world.
I know. It's such a beautiful thing. And actually, I look back on my career, and you know how it is. Like when you're in it, you don't really even realize like how precious and how, this is something that I've told many people to do. It's like, stop and look at your life from a bird's eye view and like see what you've created, as a parent, see what you've created as an educator, as a teacher, the impact that you make in the community. And it's just kind of like, wow. So yeah, I've done that. I haven't done it recently, but it's a pretty cool credential to have, opening up the first kids yoga studio in the world.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about when you were first starting and you had your business mentor, what was his name again?
His name is worth repeating. His name is Michael Port.
Okay, so Michael Port. And now I know that you're focused on the biz of kids yoga and mentoring other kids yoga small business owners. Do you feel like what you learned from him, or kind of his presence in your life, did that contribute to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Absolutely. I mean, I never, ever, that's in a million years, would be where I am with having 21 successful years, making six figures, having influenced lives all over the world, and selling a business. I wouldn't be, where I am now, like on sabbatical, had it not been for Michael. And what I learned from Michael, the business skills is what I still teach today. But the biggest thing that I learned is like, we need mentors and we need coaches. And so I've always had a business mentor as long as I had NGY. I currently don't have a business mentor, so I'm not currently hustling a business right now or working a business right now. But yeah, I've always had business coaches and mentors and people who have helped me along the way.
Yeah, and it's just so, the kids yoga world, like starting your own business, it can be so daunting because it's just kind of this wide open space, and I think a lot of times people don't even know where to start. Now that you've you've been mentoring people and you have a successful business for 21 years, are there any common mistakes that you see new business owners making, or any kind of themes that you've seen, a little piece of advice you might offer new business owners?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of them is, and I really appreciate that you're naming kids yoga teachers as business owners, because if you're actually providing a service and collecting money and there's an exchange there, like you actually have a business. And that's like the number one thing that I think I often see is that kids yoga teachers don't see themselves as business owners. I resisted it. I'm telling you, like I resisted it for a good amount of time until I had a conversation with an accountant. He was like, yeah, you've got a business going on. Like you need to like get the separate business checking account, I filed as an LLC way back then, and to take the professional steps. But really, it's actually the ownership of being a solo professional, of being a solo entrepreneur, of being a business owner that is so hard for so many people. It's a worthiness conversation. I don't want to have a business. I just want to teach yoga. It's a lot. It's many layers. I don't know anything about business, So, but I think it's just like recognizing that like, hey, if you want to do this meaningful work that you love to do, and actually make money doing it, whether you want to do it part-time, whether you want to do it full-time, whether you just want to like work for a nonprofit and, donate your services, that's amazing. But like primarily like you showing up and doing the things, that are essential to, being organized, being professional, having long-lasting relationships and building early on, to not let it to not wait 6 years and then start paying attention to your finances, to not wait 3 years and then start building an email list. So it's like early on, really start to put these little important pieces in place. I wrote an ebook called I'm Certified Now What? And it gives you like the 10 steps of things to do to get you started up. And I get it. It's so overwhelming, and it's like, where do I start? And I don't want a business, or I just want to teach yoga. So
yeah, and that's so super helpful, because I think a lot of people, I think probably most people, they get into kids yoga because they just love it. I mean, if you're not getting into kids yoga to make money or it's kind of like you get into it because you have a passion for it, and then if you decide you want it to be a career, it's not an easy path because it's not a clear path right now. So totally. I think that's so amazing for anyone listening to hear who's just starting out to take these steps early on. It's huge. I think it could, it makes a huge difference. And like what you said about worthiness, I think that's a big part of it. For a lot of people, I know for me, it's like, oh, but I just want to do this. Like, I don't want to run. I can't run a business. I don't know how to do that. But, to have a mentor like you, someone who's been in it for so long and can offer that knowledge and get you organized. I think that's so important. I was looking on, I was reading about the Biz of Kids Yoga, and I saw you mentioned being a yoga entrepreneur and what that means exactly. So what is the difference between being a yoga teacher and then versus a yoga entrepreneur?
Yeah. Great question. And this is really, again, what we dig into first is some of the group programs, that I've facilitated. Because knowing the difference between being a yoga teacher and being a yoga entrepreneur and when we wear these different hats. So as you're saying, and total agreement, is like most people get into kids yoga because they have a passion for it and they just want to teach and they love kids and yoga. And so when you go to schools or when you go to a yoga studio or you go to a private home or run a birthday party and you're wearing the hat of a yoga teacher, like that's really when you're being the kids yoga teacher. And that's when you're being creative. That's when you're being, animated, expressed and playful and you're in your teacher mode, right? Which is super important. Like that's what you went to, yoga teacher training for. And then there's the role of being the yoga entrepreneur. And this is the role, the hat that we wear when we are, doing billing and invoicing, when we're doing our social media posts, when we're, writing a blog post or, doing any sort of marketing. So it's more of the business side of things. And you can imagine that, a lot of people enjoy the first hat a lot more. It's like, it's easy. It's like it's their natural, go-to. And then the other hat is a little bit more like, it's just like, it doesn't quite fit always. Mm-hmm. Now, I know plenty of very successful, kids yoga teachers who are naturally gifted with the entrepreneur side. And I also, I just like really want to name and like have your listeners to really get that, like I had zero business background, like zero, like I didn't go to school for it. I was talking to my dad today and he was an entrepreneur himself. And I told him, I was like, I had it in my blood, but I didn't get educated in it. But I got, a mentor. And so I'm living proof that like, if I could do it, like as a special ed teacher who had no, training and did what I did with the kids yoga business, like anybody can do it. That's really my belief.
Yeah, that's so inspiring to know. 'Cause, you see what we see is you running this hugely successful kids yoga business and you don't realize like what went into it and what was behind it. Now, when it comes to, hiring teachers is where I want to go next. So like say once you have a kids yoga business and it's starting to grow and you realize, oh, I can't teach all these classes because, maybe there's interest at the same time. Do you have any words of wisdom on how to find good teachers? Like what kind of qualities you look for?
Yeah, I actually ran a webinar on this topic and it was super juicy because when you get to that place of like, I can't be in two places at once, and you've got, you're teaching at a studio and a school wants you to come and teach there or vice versa. And, you realize like there's actually a demand for your services. It's exciting. And you have two choices. You have the opportunity to like say, hey, I'm not going to grow in that direction. I just want to keep it me, myself, and I want to do all the teaching. Or you can bring on, another teacher or two. And I've worked with so many kids yoga entrepreneurs and helping them to grow their business successfully in this way, because it is an art. And when you start to grow, when you start to what's called scaling your business, and scaling meaning like you can be earning income from multiple directions at one time. And so like you could be teaching and then you could have two other teachers at the same time, or you can be home with your kids and your teachers can be out teaching. So it's growing your business beyond just you. And it's a very important time of the business that must be done skillfully. And, there's thankfully an abundance, mostly an abundance of kids yoga teachers out there, especially as there are more and more teacher trainings popping up. People are getting certified. And so one way to find like quality teachers who are certified and who have gone through trainings and who are, skilled at what they do is to network with your community. Particularly if you're living in a town or a city where you went through teacher training, I would go to your cohort to, get the email list out of the people with whom you graduated with. I would also do some networking with local yoga studios. Particularly, again, obviously you want to have people who are trained in working with children, not just adults. But that's another avenue. But also, going to the source. So if you, for example, live in, I'm making this up, but if you live in San Francisco and you took a teacher training at, such and such yoga studio, I would not only go to your direct cohort, but go to the organization with whom you trained and, work with them and see if they can help you to find other teachers. And so I'm a big believer in there are enough kids in the world and there are enough opportunities that it shouldn't ever feel competitive. So to use your network and finding people who are trained, who are enthusiastic. I'm also a believer of like sending out an email blast or doing social media posts. And what this does also is it gets people like knowing about you and what you do. So I know there could be the tendency to feel vulnerable about being like, I'm hiring, I'm looking for a teacher. Sometimes, that feels uncomfortable with people, but it's actually like, it's a really powerful position to be in as well. Be like, yeah, I'm hiring. I'm in the growth phase of my business, and I'm looking for this, and that. So really being clear on who you're looking for, and then from there, if I could just share, like, once you have your teachers, and like it's so important to sort of initiate them into your business. So maybe they've trained at the same school as you, but maybe they haven't. And so then you'll want to really educate them and train them in sort of your brand. I always, I've worked with kids yoga entrepreneurs in developing a teacher handbook with an orientation and sort of like how to support and how to like nurture the relationship that you'll have with your teachers, because this is your team, this is your family. These are the people who are going to be showing up, and you want them to be showing up, representing you and proud and loyal. So you want to treat them really well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing right now, I think everyone is aware of how much teachers do, because we are in this current situation in a global pandemic and kids are home and parents are teaching, and they're kind of like, wow, we never realized, how much teachers do. And as kids yoga teachers, I think, we're very dedicated and we really care about what we're doing. And as you said, like, if you're hiring teachers, just to make sure that you're taking care of them. Because that's it. The teachers that are in the room are what your business is and what you're trying to do. When you started Next Generation Yoga and you were in the city and you had your studio, were you teaching most of the classes, or was that the point at which you started to hire teachers?
Yeah. So in 2000, when I opened up the first studio, I was doing everything. Like I put on the schedule, I think it was 25 classes a week. I know. Oh, wow. Right.
It's a lot of
teaching. There's a lot of classes. And I was doing the thing where I would teach for, 4 kids at a time, which is not horrible, cause 4 kids is like 12 adults, energetically. But I was teaching, I was answering the phone, I was doing the bookkeeping, I was cleaning the studio floors, I was doing the registration, I was doing everything. And I quickly just learned that was super not sustainable, not for my, my health, not for my passion, not for, the community. And so I learned early on that delegation is key. And this goes back to like, if there are parts of the business that you are not skilled at or don't want to do, like, the bookkeeping or the social media, like there's people who are experts at that. And so when I realized that, like, okay, I need to not be doing everything, like, yes, that is when I started to, the first thing that came is people were asking me, to teach them how to teach yoga to kids. And so I developed the teacher training. And then from that place, I hired teachers. So I think I did it for about a year. And then in 2001 is when I led the first training. And then got some more teachers on board, because doing everything is just not a good idea.
I know. I think, I've made that mistake. I think probably most people have, you have to do it, I think, to learn that lesson. But when you are so depleted and drained, it's just, like you said, it's not good for you. It's not good for the community. And sometimes letting go a little bit can feel hard, but so important. When you were kind of in the height of the busyness of running the studio and things were picking up, what did your self-care look like? I know at that point, self-care wasn't this buzzword that it is now. But did you have ways that you took care of yourself in order to, keep things going and to be kind to yourself?
Yeah. I tend to, especially, in the last 10 years, I definitely have been high on the self-care, mountaintop. It's been a big, big part of my life. But I remember, back then, I had a dog at the time. So my apartment was on 73rd in Columbus. My studio was on 72nd and Broadway. So those were like, a two blocks away from each other. And I had a dog at the time, which I had just gotten, like during the early time of my career. And then so Central Park was right there. And I remember like getting out and, being in the park with my dog, and the dog community was a big, big, big part of my, cleansing of the mind and walking. So I definitely felt like that was, important for me. And then of course, I'm going to yoga classes, but I remember I would go to yoga classes and I'd be like, in a adult class, and I'd be like in Warrior Two, and I'd be like, this is surfing pose, like that's kind of how my brain was working. And it was kind of not, but it was cool because I was an excited entrepreneur at the time.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a dog here in the city, so I know the dog community very well. It really is like, it's so nice. It's such a, they have off leash hours. I'm near Riverside Park. So you bring your dog before 9 and you kind of have people you talk to and.
Totally. Yeah. It's a highlight for sure.
Yeah. And so how long did you have the studio? And then when did you make that move from the East Coast to the West Coast?
Mm-hmm. So I had the first studio, which was designed based on the Wizard of Oz. It was super freaking amazing. And then in 2003, things were going really well, like really, really, really well. I was running teacher trainings every month, and had like 20 people in them from all over the world. And in 2003, I opened up a second studio in that same building. And then when 2005 came around, how old was I? I think I was just turning 30. And I was realizing, so I've been 7 years in the business, 5 years going in studios. And I was like, I need a freaking break. And so I took myself to Africa. I had an opportunity to teach kids yoga in a family yoga and dolphin retreat there. But I went to Africa and I did a lot of yoga spontaneously with kids there. And I realized that, my goodness, like, I don't want to be a studio owner anymore. And so it was like this wake up call to me to be, over in like this wild part of our world, and to do yoga with kids and realize that my mission was bigger than a brick and mortar. And so when I got back to the States, and it took me probably about 6 months or so, and I listened in and I followed my truth, and I closed the studios, and it was a good lesson of non-attachment. And so from that place, the model of Next Generation Yoga really shifted from being a brick and mortar and everybody coming to this place to now being more of a going to other studios to offer classes, schools, private homes. And then also that's when I began to travel with the teacher trainings to other cities as well. So at that point I realized, I was like, wow, I could live anywhere. Like I actually had a lot more teachers running the classes. I was doing, a few, but I was mostly running teacher trainings and traveling. And I was like, I could live anywhere. And my heart was saying, like, time to leave New York City. So I believe it was about 2007 when I left Manhattan and kept the program running in Manhattan. I wasn't there, but there was, we still had the school contracts and some private home classes happening. And then I moved to San Diego, and there I started up some school programs, and it really started to grow Next Generation Yoga. We started up there, our teacher community and our lesson plan club. And, so that's kind of when I moved from East to West. And, I was like, nice to have location independence.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that freedom. And so then you're running the business from there, and it's changing and growing. And then, once you're 21 years in, what kind of led you? And I feel like the theme here is that you kind of listen to yourself and you listen to your intuition. But kind of what led you to deciding after all this time that it was time to sell the business?
Yeah. So after living in San Diego in Southern California for about 6 years, I moved up to San Francisco, and that was actually, it's sort of funny because as soon as I got to San Francisco, I went to a business coaching event, and it was in March, and I think I got my tax return while I was in that event. And I remember looking at my numbers being like, yeah, I'm doing well financially. I need to start offering business coaching. It was like okay, why am I not doing this? And so, that was about 7 years ago. And, so right when I got to the Bay Area, I started doing business coaching privately. And then I developed an online course that was more group coaching. And so as I'm doing more business coaching and I'm teaching less and less kids yoga classes, at this point, I had also started to scale our trainer team and started to offer train the trainer, where I actually had other people traveling to different cities offering the NGY teacher training. And so I found myself, like, again, having this time, location freedom where I can live and work from anywhere in the world. And I was doing more and more business coaching, and I was really loving it. And, you know, and I'm CEOing NGY. And so I loved the company up until the day I transitioned it. And I still love the company and what it's offering, and how it gives people, particularly through trainings, it gives people joy and passion, teaching opportunities. And so there was nothing wrong with the business. I just got to a place where I felt like I had sort of reached my limit of what I could do with it. I had done so much with it, from the studios to the teacher trainings to the, you know, retreats and the birthday parties and the special events and the books and the videos and the licensing and the curriculum. And so I'd done like all the things, and I just realized, I was like, I feel like someone else can really take it to the next level, and that my passion, which I'm still I'm still discovering that, I'm still figuring out what that is, but that I can use my creativity and my passion towards something new. And so yeah, it was, you know, if we fast forward all the way to 2019, and it's actually just almost a year ago, I had found the right and perfect buyer to take leadership of Next Generation Yoga.
Was it hard to let go, or at that point were you kind of like, I'm ready for this and this feels right?
Yeah, if I'm completely honest, it's both. I think, you know, and this is a lot of what I'm discovering about myself now is, who am I without this identity of being a leader in an industry and owner of a successful international company? And, you know, who am I if I'm not a team leader and, you know, making an impact on people's lives? Like, who am I? And so to that extent, it's like, yeah, letting go of this main identity. And then, of course, there's like passing along my baby to someone else who's doing, you know, wonderful, wonderful things with it. And I'm so happy that it's in Amy Lee's hands right now. And so, yeah, I mean, the obvious, like, oh my God, my baby, you know, and just sort of like the natural egoic things that we go through. But, you know, at the same time, I was really, really ready. I was ready probably, Jessica, for like several years. And it took me at least 5 or 6 years to be, you know, I was like preparing myself. You know, it was like, at first when I realized, I'm like, I think I want to sell the business. And like, I was telling my dad, and he's like, you're crazy. But I was crying about it. I was like, I don't know, like, you know, but, you know, I prepared myself emotionally for it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's so honest and just kind of refreshing to hear, because obviously that's not an easy decision, but I mean, you really are a pioneer in so many ways. And, you know, not only starting the first kids yoga studio, but then also the way you grew your business is kind of the way that kids yoga businesses are growing now, you know, to offer teacher trainings, to offer, I mean, you started online trainings way ahead. Now that's a huge thing, especially now in our current state where we're all kind of virtual at this moment. So I'm just excited to see what you do next, because, you know,
you and I both.
just, I think, yeah, it's really cool. I know you're talking to me you're in Maui, right?
I'm currently Maui, yeah, with, I was in India, and then when the pandemic broke out, I came back to the States, but I got to land in the magnificent Maui.
Right. So we might, if you heard any birds throughout, there
Yeah.
they are. Well, before we come to our final question that I always ask, I just was curious about, now that you're kind of, so that shift from teaching kids to then mentoring adults for you, have you found, is it a similar passion for you? Is it, or is it completely different? Like, how do those two things compare?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like, I was an epic school teacher. Like, I was a really good classroom teacher. And I say this like with a healthy dose of bragging, like not to make anyone jealous, but like knowing my skills. But I was a freaking badass kids yoga teacher. Like, there's something gifted in my system that really knows how to connect with kids. And it's funny because I'm not a parent, and I'm most likely not going to be having kids in this lifetime. But I really like knew how to educate and engage, so sort of edutain kids through yoga. And then, obviously doing that through yoga teacher trainings as well. And, I have a really big place in my heart for personal growth and development. And so I find that like business is not separate from personal development work in the world. And so I do feel like my passion for supporting and working with adults and mentoring them in the business, but also in life is really like spot on for me. It's a very natural skill set that I have. And any reading, if you want to get woo, like any sort of astrology reading I get, like it's always like, you are a natural teacher. You are supposed to be teaching and mentoring. And I feel it. It's just kind of, what I feel like is my natural set of gifts. And so, yeah, I don't currently miss teaching kids. I feel like I've outgrown that phase. And I have a few select amazing kids yoga entrepreneurs that I am privately working with right now, even while on sabbatical. And, it's a very interesting time to be in business as a kids yoga entrepreneur. And,
yes.
Yeah. And so I absolutely love, being a business coach and a mentor. And just, one last thing I think that I really, enjoy is that like 21 years in an industry, in a field, in a niche, like I know the thoughts, the questions, the self-doubts, the ways of a kids yoga teacher. Like I really, really get it. And so that's why I'm here. Like right now, while I'm not actively marketing and pursuing to grow this part of my life as a business coach, but if there are people out there who are listening and who feel like they can get value from a call or a session or a couple months working with me, like if it's the right fit, I will absolutely work with people because I feel like I have gifts to share and lessons that I've learned that it just makes it easier for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get, at the end, I definitely want you to share all your contact info because I'm sure many people would love to get in touch. But before we do that, I love to end the episodes with little kids yoga gems.
Yeah.
So just if you can offer someone who is just starting to teach kids yoga one piece of advice, what would that be?
Follow your heart. Do you. It's good to do market research and see what else is out there, but really, create from your authentic self. And that's magnetic.
That's really good. You hit me with that one.
Oh, you're
It is
doing it,
magnetic.
darling, with the podcast. You're totally doing it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy that you were able to do this and talk with me. And if people want to get in touch with you to learn more or anything, where can they find you?
Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to share a bit about my journey, and so great to connect with you, and happy to connect with anyone who is on the path, who feels like, again, if it's just a conversation or an email, however I can be of service. So I'm really minimalistic right now. I don't have a website. You can find some information about what I've done with the Biz of Kids Yoga. It's all housed right now on nextgenerationyoga.com, but you can also go to thebizofkidsyoga.com. Everything really needs to be updated, but as I've shared, I am on sabbatical and sort of getting clear on how I want to rebrand myself. So yes, you can find information about thebizofkidsyoga.com. You can email me at jg@jodigolda.com, and Facebook, Jodi Golda Komitor. Or give me a call, 917-863-8494. I'm not afraid to put my phone number out there. Let's connect.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much. And as I said at the beginning, it's really an honor to be able to have you on here and to share your wisdom. And I know so many people listening are going to benefit from this. So thank you. Enjoy your time in that beautiful place. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thank you, Jessica.
We'll talk soon. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would so appreciate your support. You can simply rate and review. You can subscribe. Click that subscribe button, and you will hear a new podcast every Thursday right on your feed. You can also email me, thekidsyogapodcast@gmail.com, and give me a follow on social media, The Kids Yoga Podcast, on both Instagram and Facebook. All of these things really help support the podcast and get it out there so that I can continue to make more. And there are my children that need me. Namaste, everybody.